We've got the Heritage folks in here with us. Genevieve Wood, Jim Carafano, and Hans von Spakovsky joining us for a little afternoon conversation precursor to our event this evening. Sold out event at Tapawingo Golf Course. I'm excited for that. The question that I was asking on the way into the break has to do with social media. And we were discussing the First Amendment and how the First Amendment is absolutely under attack. Genevieve, I'll ask you first, just from the standpoint of how we've seen corporations, big tech, government, media outlets all working together to form a narrative on how people talk in what is a public square? Is it a town square? Or is this something that should be managed? What do you think about the way that in 2023 we talk about information? Well, there's the new word disinformation or misinformation or whatever it is currently. How should conservatives approach the actual discussion about the way our conversations are being controlled?
Well, I mean, I think we ought to recognize it's great that we have lots of different voices out there, right? I mean, there was a time when the country was kind of controlled by NBC, CBS, and ABC. And, but then talk radio comes onto the scene, and a lot of it was by conservatives. There was obviously a hunger for it. And then the internet explodes, and now you've got all these different platforms out there. And that, we think the more speech, that's a good thing. The question comes in when the censorship comes in, and I don't mean necessarily by a private company, but when the government comes in and is in cahoots with a private company, Facebook comes to mind or others, and they decide what's going to be allowed on public platforms and what's not. And I think we're now learning a lot of what happened in recent election cycles, what happened during COVID about what the government wanted to be out and what they did want to be on these platforms. And I think that's something we really have to dig into.
Hans, we were discussing the weaponization, the attack on the First Amendment, and the way that the government has been in cahoots with a lot of these different places. They're really creating a narrative, and they're making sure that any questions that you might have yourself, you might go, well, I'm not really seeing a lot of people talking about this. We have a permanent warning on our YouTube channel for something that happened during COVID that if we have another infraction, we get an automatic strike. And the thing, I've gone back and listened to it, YouTube was wrong in giving us that warning. But we spent a lot of our time. I'm sure that there are lives that were lost because certain conversations weren't being had out loud, even for people who are wrong. What kind of action can an average citizen right now do to make sure that they are working to defend their own First Amendment?
Well, that's tough for an average citizen to do, but I'll tell you two things that I think ought to happen. I mean, one, going back to the lawsuit I was talking about before, look, the First Amendment applies to the government, not to private companies and individuals. They can censor if they want to. The government can't. But if those social media companies are acting as agents for the government, and that's what the judge found, right, then they are violating the First Amendment, and you can go after them for censoring speech. The other thing that needs to change is, remember, when the internet was young, all these internet providers, social media providers, they all went to Congress and said, look, we're not editors like the New York Times. We just publish whatever people send us, so we should have no liability for defamation or libel or anything like that. And Congress passed an immunity provision. Well, a long time ago, they quit just acting as neutral folks, just placing things. They are now editing. They are acting like the editorial page of the New York Times and the Washington Post. Why should they get immunity when those newspapers don't? And I think Congress needs to make serious changes, if not to entirely get rid of that particular section of the federal law.
It's not just the Biden administration that's trying to, smooth the future path that they're going to traverse. There are foreign countries that hate us and want us to fall apart that are getting in this game of what information we do consume, how we do talk about things, what we become interested in. And some people say, oh, TikTok is the worst thing ever. Other people go, they've got all our information anyway.
No, it's already demonstrably proven that TikTok has messaged for the Chinese government to the American people in a certain way.
Give me an example.
And also that the data is readily available to the Chinese. So I'll give you a really good example is there's a lot of frivolity and stupidity on TikTok, right? For kids.
Most of it, I think.
The Chinese do not allow those same videos to be shown to their children.
Why would that be?
Because they know it makes people stupid.
Yeah.
Right. So they're all for Americans being stupid and distracted and American children wasting their time. But they would never let Chinese children look at that kind of content.
It's a real thing.
So this
is not a conservative talking point of.
So let me tell you.
Look at all the people in Silicon Valley who don't let their own children
right.
have a smartphone.
So
right?
That's a very good point.
This is the
very good point.
What really saves us, I think when social networks were created and we thought, okay, we're safe because now we've taken the platform of liberty, right? Instead of everybody going to Main Street, we've taken that, we've given that to the American people, and we're not controlled by the New York Times or CBS or everything else. What we discovered is that the same pitfalls and challenges in social media are the same things we can see in mass media. What makes the difference is networks. It's people that get to. So there's a reason that 250 people show up tonight, and it's because of you guys, right? They listen to you, and they want to be part of that dialogue, and they're going to come and they'll do action. There's a reason why somebody's actually investigating places like Facebook, because people put somebody in Congress, and that person in Congress used the oversight responsibility they have to demand to look at these documents that started these things. So and yeah, you can do networks through social media, but it's not a silver bullet. It's certainly not anymore. But it's that network of purposeful action that makes all the difference. The left got this right. There's a reason why BLM put people on the streets, destroyed lives, and everybody cheered them on and gave them billions of dollars because they had a network that put that into action.
That's a great point. Genevieve, I wanted to ask you before we wrap here, got a couple minutes left. I keep getting asked by our listeners, talk about Project 25. Talk about Project 25. I want to talk about Project 25 with you. Genevieve, what is Project 25? What should people know?
It's something that the folks at MSNBC are very scared of. So
Everyone's
that's our
interested
tagline.
already.
Yeah,
Say
that's
no
our
more.
tagline. Yeah. No, look, I mean, every time an administration comes in that, it's not just the president and the vice president, a few other people. You have over 4,000 to 5,000 officials that need to come in with them. They need to have a playbook from day one of where they're going to go in these different agencies. And Heritage is leading an effort that now involves over 60 other conservative organizations. So it's not just Heritage, it's us and a lot of others, both in D.C. and across the country, that have said we don't want the next conservative administration to come in and not be ready to go the very minute he or she takes the oath of office. And so the goal of Project 2025 is to have both the policies in place, and we have a 900 plus page book where you can go through every agency and see, here's what you got to do, written by many Heritage scholars, but also others from other organizations. But you got to have the personnel. So we've got a database, kind of a conservative LinkedIn set up. Anybody listening out there who wants to do something for their country, check out Project 2025 and put your resume in. Come serve your country for 2 to 4 years. And then having a playbook that's ready to go that says, like, okay, in the first 180 days, here's where the bodies are buried. Here are the regulations that need to go. Here are the new regulations that need to come in. I don't think we've always tried to do something similar to this for previous administrations, but nothing on this grand of a scale have we done.
Yeah, but usually it starts like after the convention when candidates start to seriously think. And the notion is, why do you wait?
Yeah.
And look, the Biden guys did this. Here's the difference. They did it in silence. They didn't tell anybody what they were doing. There was no transparency there. Everything we do is completely transparent. We publish the playbook. This is exactly what conservative governance look like. People can join and they know where to go. So this is not a cabal. This is what you're supposed to do. People should want people to come in office and be prepared to govern.
And this is for whomever wins that nomination in general.
Right.
This isn't a particular candidate.
And this is the most important thing. You should govern the way you talk.
Amen.